Here's where we're going to find the business growth we desire. But first, is it in the business plan? Is the growth we desire in the strategies, the tactics, the ongoing training and learning? Is it in commitment? Where is business growth? And I'm going to tell you, it's John Cheplak coming to you week 2 of 2022. And I want to support you with the single most important thing you can do and your greatest superpower, and that is focus. And part of focus is whether you're looking at a week, a day, an hour, the measurement, the observing, and I'm going to go into that. But I think the most important thing is knowing what the right thing is to focus on. And I happen to know in the work that I do, working with very, very high performers every single day, and finding out where that number one lever is. So what's interesting to note is here we are going into week 2. What happened in week 1? And you may think that, well, John, that's pretty natural. I reflect back, my goodness sakes, John, we measure every single day at the end of every single day. We do end of day reports. Okay, that's fine and dandy. Great. A measurement is important. Accountability done the right way is important. But what I want to help you with is reframing. Here's the first thing that you need to know. You can have the best business plan. You can have big goals. You can have big commitments. You can continue to go to seminars and coaching and training. And all those things, I not only encourage, they're expected, but I'm always looking at what's the lever. And then when I find out what that lever is, which I have determined over the years of leadership and coaching, when I find out what that lever is, then how am I operating within that lever? And, you know, in my work, there's not some magical thing that I come up with, just something mind-blowing, life-changing once a week. That's my requirement as a coach or teacher trainer. It is, as I always state, it is the tiny hinge that swings big doors. So we're a week into the year. We're going to charge into the remaining 51 weeks. How do we? What I want to help you with is the reframing and how you take a look at the work you've done or not done. And the first thing that we need to do is, number one, write this down. Be a third-party observer. Be a third-party observer if you're looking at self, okay? If you are measuring other people, if you are checking in on other people, it's observing or noticing without judgment. Now, in respect to the time I have available on this video, the ability to go deep into the fine-tuning of how you hold someone accountable, I can do that at a later time. I'll touch on some things that can be really, really helpful, but just think about this in general. How does it feel when you hold yourself accountable? Are you judging yourself, or are you looking at it as an opportunity for growth? Just some simple reframing. When you are holding someone else accountable, you're holding a big brokerage, you're holding a team, you're holding team members. Is it something where it feels like judgment? See, we've got to think about, how is someone receiving the experience that I'm having with them as leader? How am I receiving the experience that I create for myself? My goodness, you ever think about some of the things that we say to ourselves? Like, we'd never say it to our best friends. It's amazing. So reframe how you look into it. I want you to look at accountability is an absolute must, okay? Accountability done the right way is an absolute must. That is the lever. I mean, think about this. When is the last time that you failed miserably at something or just didn't get where you wanted to? And you looked and measured. Was it ever a skill? Was it ever the lack of skill? Or was it 100% activity? Relentlessness, never quitting. See, the thing that I get to see over and over again is, and it may be cliche, is, you know, when we all quit on something that doesn't end up maybe the way we want it to, the outcome isn't where we want it to, we quit right before we succeed. Every single time. And the difference is, I look at the people that do just great things over and over and over again. None of us are perfect, but if you look at a trajectory over time, a body of work, it is never a skill set. So let's take a look at this lever of accountability, and let's bring back in our business goals. Let's bring back in our commitments that we've made. They're critical. We must have something that is specific, measurable, and actionable with a deadline, okay? And we must have someone check in. Holding ourselves accountable, that can be very interesting. We've got to have that person checking in. And here's the reframing that I want you to think about is, first of all, so the week has gone by and you've taken a look at, these were some certain objectives, accomplishments, commitments, or goals that I had for the first week of 2022. Great, I hit them, that's awesome. Here's what I want you to think about, because you've got to be cautious with the unconscious brain. See, a lot of times if we accomplish a goal or keep a commitment, we feel that we've arrived. Have you ever seen someone do something just big and then it's like they didn't keep that momentum going? Well, I need to study that because I need to keep the momentum going with people, facilitate that. They choose, keep that momentum going. And the challenge is, it's like this, okay, I accomplished it and I'm done. And they don't stay inspired. I've been working so hard to do that. I was working so hard to have a perfect week with my nutrition. I was working so hard to have an amazing week where I hired X recruits. Have you ever found yourself, you hit it and it's like this sense of relief? But the problem is that sense of relief can be like this sense of accomplishment. It's really important to recognize and acknowledge and enjoy that, but don't let it turn into a hangover. And so here's what I want to share with you to do. It's not a goal that you accomplished. While you need to enjoy it and appreciate it, if looking back in the first week, you nailed everything or you nailed some things, here's what it was. You've created a new standard to build on. Because most people, when they put something out there that they want to accomplish, we're looking to go where we've never been. And here is the human condition. When we're looking to go somewhere we've never been, there's discomfort. There's this thing called fear. And so just at the smallest of levels, we've overcome some fear. That's wonderful. You may hit the number that was really important, but I think what you've got to look at deep down inside is the psyche, is you were able to walk through a doorway of fear. You were able to stay consistent. Maybe there were some roadblocks along the way. Did it really require a new skill set? I don't know that it required a new skill set. I gained some skill sets, but even when you gain, I should say, information, because taking the action is going to give you the skill set that you can look at and measure, with the action. Did I do it? Did I not? But the bottom line is you were brave. And I'll tell you, brave is that one common factor in taking action personally. Brave is what I'm looking for in that person I'm leading. If I look at common themes, there was bravery that took place over the last 12 months of people that had some really, really good things take place, because to go where they went, they had to go where they have not been. And to go where we have not been, we have to do what we've never done, and fear will set in. So what I want you to think about is this, is if you accomplish some things over the last week, that's your new standard. And you're not going to go below that standard. Accountability is our lever. Sure, we need business planning, we need training, and we need strategies, and we need tactics and all those things. But that lever of accountability, observing or noticing without judgment, and we've got to look at the duality of it because none of us are perfect. That's my new standard. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to stand on that and build on it to keep that momentum. I want you to believe your press clippings. I want you to look back and say, I did that. Great. Then we've got to move to the next piece of, so what, now what? That's my new standard. So what, now what? That's my new standard. Acknowledge it, enjoy it, appreciate it. And the same when you're leading someone else. And this is where that art and science of leading someone else comes into play, because it can't just be, okay, great, next, right? You've got to have that level of acknowledgement for what they did do. And you've got to educate them, though. Educate people when you're leading them of the risks of settling in. Okay, you did that, sigh of relief, right? I'm not saying don't rest. I'm just saying find a sweet spot called momentum. Momentum can get killed by settling in. Momentum can get killed by not someone feeling inspired for what they did do, right? So when I accomplish a goal, I keep a commitment, that's a new standard. Now, here's the tough one. This is the one where there can be breakdown, but this is the one also where there can be breakthrough, and that is the gap. And that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about your language. You know, many of you, all of you in my audience work with buyers and sellers. My goodness, every word matters. So when you're looking at yourself, reflecting on what you've done, if you're someone that leads other people, I don't want you to look at it, well, here's what I said I was going to do. Here's what I did do. You know, I'm terrible. We judge. No, here's what I want you to see, the gap. And what you've got to do is we've got to work with the psyche. Whether we're facilitating growth with someone else or ourselves. Okay, excellent. Recognize what you did do. Let's recognize what didn't happen. That's the gap. Growth is in the gap. You need to really internalize that. You need to internalize that for yourself. And what's going to happen is it's going to encourage you to take a look back and measure at a more intense level, because you're not judging it. You're seeing the gap. You're seeing the lack of activities. You're seeing the lack of results as the classroom where there's a measurement, and you get to see where you get to do the work that you didn't do. You get to see what was missing. It's too easy to say, that was a bad week, I'm going forward. I think it's important to say, hey, that was a bad week. Here's what I learned from it. And all parties, if you're a leader and you're being led by someone, there has to be an environment of tension, because tension will facilitate creativity. Creativity is required when we're in a space of fear. We haven't done it before, okay? But there's no judgment to it. That's the thing I want you to think about. For example, the one word, if you're a leader, and we're all leaders. You're waking up every day. I'm trying to lead myself. I just flew across the country, getting up early, 2-day event, all those things. And, you know, no one's interested in my sob story. You got your own things going on. We've got to look at, you know, why didn't you do this? No, hey, what got in the way? What was the gap? And based on what the gap was, recommit. Now, if this continues to happen, what we call a pattern, then we need to look deeper, because much of the time, if we have habits that go on over and over and over again in lack of activity or lack of consistency, it's an interpersonal thing. And that's where, if you'll hear me talk a lot about emotional maturity and emotional intelligence, emotional maturity and emotional intelligence is the gateway to massive growth. I'm going to tell you why, because the person that continues to transcend with emotional maturity and emotional intelligence is able to look at themselves, not being a judge, taking it back to maybe times earlier in their life where they were judged, you know, for not succeeding or not doing the right thing, which really, I mean, I've seen that shut tons of people down. But this ability to say, okay, I'm a witness of it. It's an opportunity. I'm going to tell you something. If you can look at what you accomplished last week as a new standard and stand on the back of that new standard, okay, and reach higher. If you can take a look at the areas you didn't take the action, the people that you are leading, or the person you're leading, or a couple of people you're leading, they didn't take the action, approach it with a smile, approach it with love, approach it with support. Okay. See, there's love and fear. Fear holds resistance. And if you've got a leadership context of fear, I'm going to tell you something. You know, fear was my catalyst. Well, you know, fear as a catalyst is not something that can endure. It will tax you. It will tax the human being that you're leading, right? You've got to look at leading with finesse while staying in principle. But the big thing is this, I want to say to you, is go deeper. You know, accomplishing a goal, going deeper, no, it's a new standard. Recognize it, acknowledge it, appreciate it. It's the new standard. I'm going to stand on the back of that. What I didn't accomplish is a gap. Growth is in the gap. Growth is in the gap. See, again, and I'll close with this, the rearview mirror is smaller than the windshields for a reason. And it's counter to what we've been taught, because we need to laser focus in that rearview mirror, because that's where the lessons are. That's where the growth is. That's the classroom. That's where we can acknowledge. It's important to acknowledge what we've done, okay? It's important to acknowledge what we've done, right? But it's also important to look at, okay, this is a space we've grown to and we can do more. And the gap, well, that's where the learning is. And the person that can embrace the gap and take the action from it is going to win. Have a great week 2 of 2022.